Are you bored of the normal Nightblade playstyle? Do you want something a little spicier in your life? Well, look no further. Today, I'll be showing off my outnumbered PvP Nightblade build. This build has a high learning curve. It's all centered around one skill that not a lot of people use, especially for people that fight by themselves outnumbered. It has a lot of potential for high AoE burst and a lot of survivability. This video will cover everything you need to know about a new way to play Nightblade, including the core principal combo, skills and gear, and the character sheet. Timestamps are down below in the description, so feel free to hop to any part you need to. And if you find this video helpful, remember to drop a like and possibly a sub. Alright, let's get into it. Alright, so let's go over what the core idea of this build is. It's mostly centered around this skill, the Scribing Destruction Staff skill. For mine, it's called Shocking Explosion. The way that this skill works is basically you charge up a giant burst, and you can follow it up afterwards with a skill. So to just illustrate what I mean, if you ever played a, Nightblade ganker or a bow build of any kind, you know how snipe animation cancels work. With any channeled ability, while you're doing it, you can put in an input and cancel the end of it with another ability. This works for any channeled ability, not just snipe. And this Destruction Staff skill is a channeled skill. You have to cast it for 2 seconds, it comes out, and it does a shit ton of damage. If you look at the tooltips, I'm not buffed up at all, right? My bow proc, it's 19.4k right now, and the Shocking Explosion is 16.4k. If I look at my spammable, this is like 8800 for example. This does a lot of damage. It's almost as much as bow proc. Not quite as much, obviously, but almost as much. And you can put a bunch of other effects on your explosion that'll make it hit really, really hard. So what if you did that? What if you did explosion into bow proc? What if you did explosion into soul tether? You'd have a lot of AoE damage or single target damage if you can pull it off. And that's what this whole build is around. So for example, to show the animation canceling thing I was talking about earlier, if I charge this up, I can end the animation with an attack, like Crushing Weapon for instance, as you see there. You can also do it with, like, I don't know, Soul Tether. So the whole idea of the build is gathering people around you as you fight them and 1vx them, and then putting them all in a little area and blowing them all up at the same time. So basically, that's the whole idea of the build. Of course, this playstyle has been done on gankers and bombers and things like that, but rarely are they done on a solo kind of 1vx build, where you can also take a hit and pull this off. Later on, we'll go over ways that you can actually pull this off safely, because it is a risky maneuver. This is a hard skill to learn how to use effectively. But if you can land it and get everything off, it is well worth it. So let's go over the stat sheet. If you look at my stats, my max stats are pretty average. Spell damage goes up quite a bit to around 7500. I'll buff up and show you. Resistances are not the highest, but we have a lot of percent mitigation. We are a Khajiit, so we get 12% extra crit damage, and we have the Shadow on top. Showing some buffed up stats, you can see we have 7300 weapon damage, about 7k pen, which actually goes up way higher than that. And even with a staff, our crit damage is pretty high. We're sitting at 61% critical damage right now, but it actually is a lot higher because our Destruction Staff skill applies Minor Brittle. So we get another 10% from that. So as for the gear, relating to what I said earlier, this is supposed to be able to take a hit and also dish a hit. So it's not going to have the highest burst damage, but we can take quite a few hits. And this is really all because of one item, Torque of the Last Aelid King. Of course, there's a bunch of other gear sets and things you can run. I'm not saying that you only can run Torque on this. You can really run whatever you like, whatever makes you feel comfortable outnumbered. But this item's really strong. Reduce your damage taken by 15%, basically pariah at all times, which is awesome. 1300 weapon damage, again, like crazy, and 500 magic and stam recovery, basically wretched. So you get wretched, pariah, and like 2 whole damage sets, maybe even 3 damage sets, on a single mythic. And then your other gear, you could run whatever you like. It literally doesn't matter. I'm running like 2 Gorman rings and infused, doesn't matter, it doesn't take the set in. and I run a lot of medium. So my traits are 5 medium, 1 light, 1 heavy. Traits right now for PvP, I like a mix of Impen and Well Fitted. I've noticed more and more that Impen is pretty valuable this patch. The things that kill you are like 13k crystal frags by some guy named like Gamer1979 or something. Even if you have 30k armor, they'll still hit really hard. The things that are going to kill you are the big crits. So you need some of that, and you also need Well Fitted so you can keep your stam up and survive. Back bar, we have an Ice Staff. I just like to be able to do some ranged heavies. And we have Defending on it, Berserker Enchant. Front bar, Lightning Staff, Oblivion Glyph with Sharpened. Oblivion Glyph is going to give you a lot of burst damage. It's not going to crit. We don't really need it to crit. It just does a lot of burst damage. It's really good. In terms of food, I like to use Jewels and Misrule because I'm not rich. And tripods. So the gear is pretty interchangeable. You can run whatever you like when it comes to gear, but the skills are pretty specific, and I'll go into why I have each one of them and how they work together. On the front bar, of course, you need Shadow Disguise. I mean, come on. We also have Bow Proc, again, pretty staple. Crushing Weapon, this is actually an interchangeable skill, and I'll show you what else you can change it out with in case you don't have Crushing Weapon. We have the Shocking Explosion, of course. The explosion itself, if you look at the affixes and things you can put on it, I like to put shock damage on it. I also like to put, for the signature script, Assassin's Misery. This will give enemies Burning, Chilled, and Concussion, which are very strong. I mean, Concussion is 5% extra damage they take, Burning is an extra dot. So this is very good. You can also put on something like Lingering Torment if you just want to put more damage over time on them. And if you want to be like really ballsy, you could put on War Mage's Defense. If you hit 3 people with this, that shield will go up pretty high. The affix script is the most important part for this skill, to be honest. And for me, I like the Minor Brittle. Brittle's already a hard debuff to come by, and this can increase their critical damage taken by 10%, which is pretty big. If you don't have that affix, I would also recommend trying out Lifesteal. If you hit like 3 people with this, you put Lifesteal on all of them, and you have Burning Dot on all of them, they will be taking damage, you'll be getting health. Lifesteal is a really easy way to make yourself tanky, as well as Magicka Steel. This is a lot of sustain. For Brutality, Power Extraction, it's just a really, really solid skill. Not only will this give you Brutality, but it can give you Minor Courage, which is very strong. And also, it's an AoE spammable. So the reason you would want this over something like, you know, Degen or Rally or anything is because let's say this Bullnetch is my group of targets here. If they're all kind of low and I don't have a Soul Tether, I could hit one of them afterwards with like a Crushing Weapon, right? You know, that's fine. But what if I want to kill multiple of them at the same time? Well, you can do a Power Extraction right after your explosion and it'll hit everyone in an area. So if you have a lot of people that are low, you can just hit all of them at the same time, which is very handy. And then it gives you Brutality, it gives you Minor Courage, it's just really strong. And of course, Soul Tether for the ultimate. I was using Incap for a bit, but I highly recommend going Soul Tether. The AoE burst damage you can do with Shocking Explosion into Soul Tether is so good. And then if you want even more AoE damage after, you can fit on Power Extract. And there's also another skill I'll mention in a bit, where you can add even more AoE damage on top. First skill in the back here is Shadow Image. This skill is so good. This lets you be aggressive and cocky and have a get out of jail free card. It is such an underrated skill on Nightblade. I highly recommend using it, highly recommend. Next skill, Race Against Time. If you're on a Nightblade, honestly, you need this skill as well. Major Expedition, Minor Force, immunity to snares and immobilizations, everything you need in one skill. It's very quick. Healthy Offering, this is your burst heal, gives you minor mending, pretty straightforward. On the back here, we got Magical Contingency. Well, this is Ulfsild's Contingency. So this is another skill that you can add into your combo to further increase how much AoE damage you do. How it works is the next skill you cast will cause an AoE burst damage around you. Sounds pretty straightforward. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So this AoE like burst thing on the Destruction Scaff has a long windup, so you can proc this on the back. We have all sides ready. Use this, and all of that will proc at the same time. Keep in mind, I did all that damage. I don't even have Brutality up. I got nothing. So not only is this some extra burst damage, but it'll give you an extra heal over time, and give you minor intellect and minor endurance. A comparable skill for me is something like Refreshing Path. This is also very good. The healing on this is stronger for sure. It gives you that same minor regens. We already get speed from Race Against Time, so don't need that. But the problem with this skill as well is if you put this down, if you run out of it, which is very easy to do when fighting outnumbered, look, I'm not getting any healing anymore. So Path is a great skill, especially for dueling and things like that. But if you're fighting outnumbered, you need a heal over time to be able to stack onto you. See, look, I'm getting healing even though the thing I did was way long ago. Another great way that you can proc this as well, let's say that you didn't want to go in offensively with this, you can roll dodge with it, and that'll proc it. And so while you're kiting people, if you just need a little heal over time and some regen, pop this, roll around a corner, you got a heal over time on you, stack that with vigor, you're probably going to be fine. Last skill on the back bar, we have Resolving Vigor. I mean, this is your self heal, pretty straightforward. On the front bar, we do have a flex spot. So Crushing Weapon is a pretty solid skill, but you can also go with something else. You can go with Pestilent Soul. This is a more customizable scribing skill again. What I have on this skill is extra disease damage. The reason that you might like disease damage is it can proc the disease status effect, and when that procs, it actually will do an extra bit of burst damage. You can also put on Lingering Torment to do damage over time, have an extra dot on them, again more damage. And then you can have that same major breach that Crushing Weapon can give you. Going over champion points really quick, I got Fighting Finesse, Master at Arms, Wrathful Strikes, and Ironclad. In the red tree, we got Celerity, Refreshing Stride, Pain's Refuge, and Sustained by Simping. So the thing that you need to look out for most is that you can be interrupted when you're casting this skill. Also, sometimes when you're casting this on the ground, ESO's targeting system is kind of shit, so it just won't come out sometimes. And you have to understand when that's happening and just realize, okay, I guess not this time, oh well. And then block, roll dodge, try again in a little bit. The safest time that you can actually cast this skill is when you're on CC cooldown. If you've been stunned lately, you can't be stunned again for another 8 seconds. And so that means that you can't be interrupted while you're casting this if you are CC immune. That is the safest time to go for your combo. Let's say I'm ready to burst, use your stealth, make sure you have your weapon damage buff, use your vigor, light attack, Ulf styled, start up the channel, and kick their ass. So I mean, that's basically the core combo. Other ways that you can save yourself in a pickle, if your shade is up, that's a very nice thing to have. Because let's say you're going in on these people, you're trying to burst them, oh, you're taking way too much damage, you're about to die. You just swap to the back bar, shade out, and keep walking. Shade lets you be aggressive and lets you bait things. And if you're gonna eat shit, it'll save you. So that's basically the build. Hope you guys have enjoyed. If you found this video useful, remember to drop a like, possibly a sub if you enjoyed it and want to see more. And wish you the best of luck with it. Peace.